Hello and welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. I'm Jessica Christie, CEO of Beauty Culture Med Spa and the founder of the new functional and regenerative business, Cultured Wellness. From my start as a physician assistant to now not only being a practitioner but leading my own businesses, I've been on a unique journey through health, beauty, and entrepreneurship. Join us as we explore everything from skincare secrets to leadership lessons. Whether you're passionate about beauty or striving to balance life's challenges, this is your space to connect, learn, and shine. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Curated Beauty Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Christie, and this is the podcast that we dive into all things beauty, aesthetics, wellness, longevity medicine. And today we have a truly exciting episode lined up for you. We are diving into the world of methylene blue and its groundbreaking applications for health optimization. And who better to guide us through this journey than our esteemed guests that we have today from Best 365 Labs. First, I'm thrilled to introduce and announce that we have Dr. Stephen Warren with us. With a rich background in allopathic medicine, Dr. Warren has delved into numerous specialties. But what's truly fascinating is his passion for stem cell research and longevity medicine. His insights into the development of health optimization products are second to none. And joining Dr. Warren is Dan Schmidt, the visionary co-founder of Best 365 Labs. It was a pleasure talking to Dan during this, where we are really getting to know his commitment to formulating safe and effective products in the health and wellness space. And it's really, truly been a game changer in this industry. And we're trying to get the word out. Together, we're going to explore the innovative work of Best 365 Labs, particularly with their methylene blue products and how they're revolutionizing the way that we approach health and longevity. So whether you're a health enthusiast, a longevity seeker, or you're just curious about the latest in wellness innovation, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Dr. Warren, thank you for taking time out. Can you tell me a little bit about how you've gotten into this space and how you and Dan started this company together?
You know, it's fascinating. I've been in medicine for years and years. I hate to say how long, but I went to medical school and got my PhD and MD back in George Washington years ago. Matter of fact, I took care of Reagan when he was shot. So it tells you how many years ago I was in medical school. And then I practiced in a rural area for years where I did a lot of deliveries and general medicine and surgeries. I was the only doctor in the county larger than the state of Rhode Island, and I took care of everybody. Then I came back up into Salt Lake and ended up for 20 years running 14 nursing homes and rehab centers. And then we did some addiction medicine, and then I got into a little aesthetics, but I started realizing that I was tired of seeing people dying on hospice on so many medications. And so I went back to what I really enjoyed was the nutrition and trying to get people on the right medications to feel better. And so the last 5-6 years, we've been doing a medical clinic similar to yours, Regenerative, doing some stem cell work, PRP, peptides, medical weight loss. I've done that for the last 3 years. And we've been doing it. But I had all these people after COVID coming in with the brain fog, not feeling good, having the brain fog and just not able to function. And I started realizing back in medical school when we were working in the ICUs and in residency, when we had traumatic brain injuries coming in and when we had people that had cardiac shock in the cardiac shock units, we hung up IV methylene blue. Now, as you remember, IV methylene blue has been FDA approved for people with carbon monoxide poisoning and arsenic poisoning because it reverses it because of the effectiveness of methylene blue. And we use it during the trauma times to help people's brain repair and get them functioning better. And I thought, wow, I used it during shock trauma. Why not try it on IV methylene blue for post-COVID patients, both either vaccine or not vaccinated patients, just that brain fog? I started hanging it on IVs on them, and suddenly, man, people within days were starting to feel better, coming to me, wow, our brain fog's gone. I had a 39-year-old that had not worked for a year and a half, and within 2 weeks, he was able to go back to work, and he just is still grateful. Came the other day and gave me a big hug because he said he's back to work, taking care of his family, but for methylene blue. So I went to some people I worked with before, Dan and Darren, who's the CEO of the company, and said, if this works so well as an IV, let's try putting it into a pill form, but not one that turns your mouth blue, because I don't like that. So let's start making some products. And so we started making some products, trying it in the office, trying on people. And lo and behold, within days, people were starting to feel better. And we started getting the response back. Man, our brain fog's gone. We can think better. And then we started having executives say, wow, I'm able to function. I was just at one little story. I had an executive from a marketing company call me up and said, we want you to write an article for a magazine. And he said, what do you want to do it on? I said, methylene blue. And he said, oh, that sounds stupid. And I said, well, go on our website, get some and try it. and I'll call you. And I called him back in a week and I said, what do you think? He says, yeah, let's do it. My desk is cleared off. All my projects are done. I'm doing my meetings on time and my office staff doesn't know what's wrong with me. So let's write the article. So that's the part we just started getting feedback from patients. And that to me is an important thing, using a nutraceutical to get to that point. I'll talk about the history of methylene blue in a second, but I'll let Dan introduce himself and how we got into here.
I love that. And it's crazy. First of all, looking at you on video, whether someone's listening, you do not look like you are old enough to have taken care of President Reagan.
We did. I won't tell you how old. Even though I have teenagers, I'm way up there. So
he looks fantastic, doesn't he?
My kids are older than you.
Regenerative
I can tell you that.
At its best.
I know. I'm like, I need to pick your brain about what else you're doing. Yes. And let's hear from you, Dan. I'm so curious at how you two got into this and what your background is as well.
Well, we've been working in the medical space for a long time. And I've been in medical manufacturing, trained docs on different therapies, like Dr. Warren into stem cell therapy, as are you, and different protocols, procedures, things of that nature, and have trained different therapies and doctors all over the country and world. So I got into this space. Aaron and I are the co-founder as far as in health and wellness. And that was really our passion. There's so many things that were out there in the supplemental space that really just didn't meet, the bar. They're subpar, right? Yes. And people were doing things and taking so many different pills and things of that nature. Were they really getting the benefit? Was it really efficacious? Yeah. And we've gone through a lot of different testing. We can go through that. We do pharmacokinetic testing on our products. We've done studies, human clinical trials. So we've done a lot to ensure that what people were getting was actually going to be efficacious and a great product. And that's kind of where things evolved. We even went to so far as we bought the SARS-CoV-2 virus from the CDC and tested that, when COVID hit. So we do a lot of neat things. And Dr. Warren is brilliant in what he does and being able to come up and formulate with Darren and really come up with some products that can really compete in the space that really do some of the things that maybe we don't want, some of those other chemicals in our bodies without calling out who they are. You know what I mean? But absolutely. They're very effective and work great.
Yes. And I love how just the ease of use, the low price point, like I really, before we dive into the specifics of your actual products, my patients, it's almost like it's too good to be true, but the feedback that we're getting is incredible. So if you guys want to talk a little bit, I would love to hear, we think about methylene blue like it was originally used in dyeing blue jeans. And then some of us think about it as fish tanks. Like how the heck did it get to being this incredible antimicrobial microorganism fighter?
Well, as back in the 1890s is when it was first synthesized as a dye. And at that particular time, they were synthesizing a lot of different dyes. And this is sort of a funny story, but you remember in the medical school, when they stained white cells, you see something called eosinophils. Well, they had a dye back there and the guy named it after his girlfriend, Eo. And that's how eosinophil came about. So at that time, it was more trial and errors of different dyes or different molecules or different minerals to try it on different things. And so when they started using methylene blue, they started getting some good results. And so the next area you saw coming out was World War I, where they had the soldiers using it for urinary tract infections and prostate infections and general health. Well, the side effect also is that methylene blue kills malaria. And, the soldiers got tired of the one side effect, which is urinating blue or green, depending on the concentration of your urine. And so they synthesized it and purified it. Well, the last purification of methylene blue is hydroxychloroquine, which everybody knows from the COVID time for rheumatoid arthritis.
We all know about that one.
Yeah. And so this is actually the mother molecule is methylene blue. And so they just had good benefits at that time. And then they finally got it approved by the FDA for people with carbon monoxide poisoning and arsenic poisoning. And then in between, it just fell aside. There was no money in it. Just like you said, I'm trying to find medications my patients can afford. And since it was a general product out there, no pharmaceutical companies want to do studies on it to jack up the prices. So it stayed as a nutraceutical, even though it's FDA approved in an IV form for a lot of other disorders. And so it's just been fascinating, this whole history coming from dyes. At that time, they didn't have all the regulations, so they could try it on people. If it worked, great. If it didn't, they went on to something else. And that's how the whole history of methylene blue came about, is just using on people, getting the results, and moving on.
Yeah. And I love the story too of how they would even use it to see the compliance of if someone was.
Yes. If they're taking they used it for years in psych hospitals.
I've joined that bluish green pea.
Yeah. You don't pee in blue. If you don't pee blue, you're not peeing health. That's what I say.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And so, but you have to remember, even in the psych hospitals years ago, they used methylene blue. They forgot that it helped with depression and other neurotropic things, but they were using it to make sure the patients were taking their medications because they put the blue into their psych medicines to make sure they were taking them, not cheeking them.
Yeah.
And so that's another use for it, but it just fell out of favor because there was no money in it. And that's why when he brought it around and started using it, it's like, wow, this is so powerful, but it doesn't cost that much.
Yes. Okay, so speaking of dyes, we've started to become trained in this health world of thinking dyes are bad for you. And so I think that this is a good time to address, first of all, that, but also the third-party pharmacokinetic testing that you spoke of, Dan, too, because methylene blue, you can't just buy it and take it. It really does need to be tested for contaminants. And so if you guys want to talk about that a little bit, too, I think that that's important.
Yeah, Doc, I can take that first part.
Yeah, I'll take the little part of it. As you know, we talk about all the dyes, but most of the dyes out there were synthetic from chemicals being made. This is actually synthesized from a mineral. So basically it does come back to earth and being, synthesized from it. And so we don't see that problem like we do with the synthetic dyes. And they found out, and the interesting thing that you might remember also, I don't know if you did this in your high school chemistry classes, when it's in a oxidized form, it's blue. When you reduce it, it turns white. And so just in our body, it can change colors in our body depending on whether it's an oxidative or reductive state. And so therefore, it's really not like the typical dyes that will dye your teeth blue or the dye that we see in all the cereals to get the right color. This is actually a natural mineral that's been synthesized a little bit, but it can change from being blue to clear depending on what, how much oxygen's in it and what it's up to, which I think is fascinating.
Yes, I love that. It's so important.
As far as the purity of methylene blue, it is one of those things, and making sure that it's non-toxic. When we talk about fish tanks, completely different than what we use. Not all methylene blue products are the same. They need to be tested, certificate of analysis, making sure heavy metals are out of it. But one of the beautiful things about methylene blue and why they use it in fish tanks is get rid of fungus, get rid of bacteria, get rid of, it fights virus. There's so many things that it does. And so to use it, but to get on and just buy something that has coming from a fish tank and not knowing that it's actually pharmaceutical grade or USP grade is not something you want to do. So that's something very important to know. And not all methylene blue, when you look at products, a lot of them are at 1%, dilution. Ours is 100%. We can talk about that later, how things differ. But very important that you have proper certificate of analysis on the beginning product and on the end product.
And I'll bring this up too, because now that my patients are using it, it's readily available to them and we talk about it and now they're using it. Now their husbands are using it. And so I had a couple where the wife got one bottle and the husband got one bottle and the pills were slightly different blue color. Can you speak to that for people that are?
Yes, absolutely.
Did I get a lesser dose or, what's going on?
No, absolutely. Quite frankly, one of the things that is super important to us as a company and as our co-founder, Darren, and I, and Dr. Warren, is to make sure that we have a product that is efficacious, but also in great supply. And never to be, as we know what happened with COVID, supply chain. And sometimes those, as they go through the supply chain, the methylene blue is the same. Sometimes it can look a little bit bluer than other times, depending on where that's done and how it's done. When you look at actually in a tincture or in a liquid form, sometimes you might see it a little lighter color, or actually as it gets oxygen into that bottle, it will turn even to a real dark blue and people think, oh my, it's spoiled. No, It's just in the state that Dr. Warren is talking about. When it gets more oxygen, it can turn more blue, and that's the difference. But it's the same methylene blue as far as that content.
Same efficacious, yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I think it's so cool once you start to use these things, you have these questions come up, and it just helps other people using these as well. Okay, let's talk about the biggest buzzword of mitochondrial dysfunction and the Krebs cycle from a really high level. I think that people are starting to realize like, oh my gosh, mitochondria, these are the powerhouses of cells and that, we need to keep them healthy and they're the beginning a lot of chronic disease. Is there a simple way to explain what methylene blue does for that whole process, Dr. Warren?
You can say it in 2 words. Methylene blue brings in good things into the mitochondria, and it also is the only product that takes bad things out.
Yeah.
And so, that's at the highest level when you're looking at it. But like you said, everything in our body has mitochondria except for red blood cells. Our brain is just so loaded. Every neuron in our brain is filled with mitochondria, and that's what makes all the energy in our body. And so methylene blue is that interesting molecule that can bring oxygen and start making more ATP in our body and helping that whole respiratory chain in our body. But also when they get the reactive oxygen species afterwards, sort of the toxins in that whole chain, it takes them out of the mitochondria and then puts it back in the blood system and excrete it out. So it's really the only product that can actually, it's a reduction product, it's an anti-inflammatory, it's doing both things basically at the same time. And that's what makes it so great for mitochondria. Because as you're just mentioning, poor mitochondrial health is the source of everything in our health, from diabetes to weight gain to autoimmune diseases. Everything is related to poor mitochondrial health. And any way we can help improve that mitochondrial health is going to be a winning situation. So at that highest level, methylene blue brings in good products, takes bad things out of those mitochondria, and takes them out of the mitochondria to keep the mitochondria as healthy as they can. And it's also, besides being hydrophilic, that means it likes water, and lipophilic, it likes fat. It can go across the brain-blood, the blood-brain barrier, and get into all those neurons in our brain to give us those benefits we're seeing with a lot of the patients with their mental health, as well as helping skin, helping everything in our body that has a mitochondria. So if you ever think that we have the mitochondria, anywhere there's a mitochondria, methylene blue is helping that.
I love that. And you know what else is crazy? I think that so many of us in the health and wellness space, we focus on detox.
Correct.
So we're doing all these things to release, and also with our medical weight loss programs, we're doing all these things to release these endogenous and exogenous toxins out of the cells. But then what? Like, are they getting pushed into other things? And so I really love that there's that whole reaction that happens where we're also eliminating the bad. And that is so key in such a simple way, again, to be able to have that happen in our body.
Right.
And, one of the things is you talk about just what you're mentioning about, trying to do all these other detox and all these other things. And when the body's in inflammation, one of the important things is if mitochondria are stuck in dysfunction, they're never functioning right. And when they don't function, they get into a battleship mode where they don't let anything in or out. It's our first response as far as immune response. And if it gets stuck in that, it's functioning properly at first. But if it stays in that dysfunction, there's more inflammation and things that are problematic. We can start taking all the CoQ10 and we can start taking the glutathione, and all these things are great. But if they're stuck in this dysfunction, all those other things really don't help. So we have to get it out of the dysfunction into proper function, right? Bring down the ROS and all these other problems that are happening in inflammation before it actually starts accepting those other things that we're trying to give to it as well.
You guys, as a mom, I always think about it this way. It's like you have every intention of cleaning out and reorganizing your kitchen, and you pull everything out and it looks like way worse of a mess. But you're worse off than if you wouldn't have started unless you put it all back together. And it's the same thing. You can do all those reactions to free those things up, but you got to complete the picture. And that is like just such a good and you can see my mom brain working. That's just a good representation. Like, you're almost worse off if you're doing it the wrong way, even though you have great intentions, if you're not seeing the whole picture.
Right.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the specific products, I have them all with me because, of course, I took my Neuro Pro Plus this morning myself. And then you have the ADHD one, and then the On Guard brain fog support, that's the tincture. If someone were looking for which one to pick up, is it always that if you have kind of that more tendency for ADHD and need the L-theanine and the caffeine additive, would you pick that one? For me, I'm always like more is better. Like, I'm going straight for the Neuro Pro Plus. How do you guide people to really choose the right product?
Go ahead, Dan. I'll let you do that.
No, that's great. Really, when we look at the ADHD, there's really a way to think of it. It's actually brain and body energy. And a lot of times when we talk about mitochondrial dysfunction, fibromyalgia, we talk about Lyme's, all these other things, MS, and even as Dr. Warren's treated with the long-term COVID, people are just sluggish. The brain actually at rest takes over 20% of our energy and oxygen consumption, and that's at rest. And so people that are in these states, they just don't have the energy to get up and go. And so the caffeine L-theanine, think of it more as a boost to mitochondria, well, really to the energy, so we can actually start feeling and moving. And as that starts happening with the methylene blue along with that, we have better ATP production, so we're getting natural energy as well. So we're able to get up and do things. It's also great for the mind and brain. If you're studying or just need to focus on tasks, we really did go after other things to get other people off of prescription medications as well that are out there that have the bad side effects, where this has all the side benefits.
Yeah.
So that's really what we're looking at. So if you want to know if something works, try that ADHD with brain and body energy. You'll feel that. You'll be able to focus. You'll be able to be on task and have endurance, really. That's really important. If you're looking at something more, we're getting more of the methylene blue. The NeuroPro Plus is fantastic for neuroprotection. Great to have and use. It's got the vitamin C combination with the methylene blue. And then easier to take as well. Some people don't like a tincture, but there is some magic in our tincture. It's just not methylene blue. We have methylene blue with vitamin C, but one of the important elements that we have in it is our mineral oxide.
Yes. Tell me about those.
And that mineral oxide is what we actually tested on COVID. And so it actually fights viral fungus. But one of the things that's super important about it is that it has a stabilized oxygen. So it can supercharge the oxygenation of the methylene blue and have better uptake. And also it acts as a redox agent as well. So it really supercharges that methylene blue. But again, it's in a tincture form. Some people like to take it, some don't. But it really is, as far as having the blue tongue, but it is super effective. And you will feel that very quickly.
And, I've noticed that if I kind of drop it back in the back of my mouth, I don't notice it as much. My son personally loves that it turns his entire mouth. Just go with it. People always look at me like I'm a bad mom, like I just gave him like a blue dye sucker or something.
Yeah.
You don't know the world.
The blue Jolly Rancher.
Yeah, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, I have a lot of patients that are on SSRIs and there's the whole concept of, can I use these methylene blue products when you're on an SSRI type of medication, which if you don't know what that is, they're used a lot of times in depression, some combinations for anxiety. Technically, the methylene blue can be a reuptake inhibitor itself, as I understand it. And so then people worry, oh my gosh, am I going to have serotonin syndrome and have too much serotonin circulating? Mm-hmm. Would you guys be able to speak kind of to the doses in which that would take and what that looks like?
Well, probably even in your short practice, and I did for years, nursing homes and hundreds of patients, and I turned out to be almost a geriatric psychiatrist. I've never seen the serotonin syndrome. We also have on our board a retired psychiatrist who testifies all over the United States in court cases and is on the major boards of psychiatry. And he's never seen a case of serotonin syndrome in all his life. It's just that they put that warning out and everybody jumps on it. Do you know what I mean? And say, wow, we're going to get serotonin syndrome. So our philosophy has been, unless you're on extremely high doses of SSRIs, and most people aren't on those big doses. They're not on 60 of Prozac. They're not on 120 of Cymbalta. They're not on the Wellbutrins, that we've not seen any of that serotonin syndrome. But if they start getting a side effect, then they stop because it won't mature on to be a serotonin syndrome. But in all the years that I've worked with MAO inhibitors and worked with other psych meds, I've never seen a serotonin syndrome. But it's just a warning to say if you had some weird side effect and you're on those higher doses of SSRIs, it's just to be a warning, because basically methylene blue is an MAO inhibitor and it acts as an antidepressant. And so a lot of the people, it's interesting, it gives them a good reason to be off of the SSRIs because that's the only thing they were put on, and they had the brain fog. They had anxiety because of the brain fog or not feeling good. Once they start feeling better with the methylene blue, they say, well, I don't need those things. And it's a nice way of getting people off of a lot of those other psych meds because they were just put on them because the docs didn't know anything else to do. And this gives them a good excuse to say, wow, I'm feeling better. Let me stop the SSRI with my doctor's permission and see how they do. And most people do very well. So it's nothing that we've really seen with the SSRIs and the serotonin syndrome with methylene blue.
We noticed that we have so many patients come in that have hormone deficiencies. And so when we're optimizing them with bioidentical hormones and peptides, they've already been put on SSRIs because they went into their OBGYN with concerns for anxiety, can't sleep, depression, when really they had hormone deficiency. So then they start to get optimized and they're like, okay, I want to get off of these things. Now I recognize what the true etiology of this was. Can we say that these medications can help start to these nutraceuticals can help start to bridge that gap and help people wean off of these with ease?
I think it's true because, they were put on because they didn't have anything else for the docs to offer them. And so once they start feeling better, it's really nice for them to wean off. Just imagine in your practice also, when you're using some of the GLP-1s for weight loss, how many of your patients, especially the women, stop their anti-anxiety medicines and their antidepressants when they're in the GLP-1 as they started losing weight and their brain started functioning better. And so that's what we're seeing. We use methylene blue for weight loss because it keeps you from being, that obsessiveness about eating food. Plus it helps the mitochondria feel better. But It's the same thing. If we get people feeling better, then they can stop these other medications, because unfortunately in the past, docs just handed it out like candy, the SSRIs, because they had nothing else to do it. They didn't know about nutrition. They didn't know about vitamins. And so they said, well, here's Prozac, here's Zoloft or sertraline. And so that's the nice thing about us, is we're able to educate them when they're getting on the methylene blue, feeling better. Say, well, maybe we should taper this a little bit for you. It's amazing how many of them start feeling better, and all the side effects from the SSRIs are gone.
Yeah. So when someone's having like those, I've been described by my patients, brain zaps as they wean off of SSRIs, would this be something that could potentially support the brain to minimize those kind of side effects?
Yeah, definitely.
It's amazing.
We kind of have a little saying that we say, first start, fresh start. And on that first start, it starts as a low dose. And that's one of the things that in our supplements that we have, they are a lower dose. And so you can use them as needed. But we've been getting reports from people that have been getting off their SSRI, as well as off Vyvanse or Adderall or other things using, the other products. And when we talk about it with children, the first thing they go in, they go, oh, they have anxiety, oh, they have depression. They put them on things immediately, right? Or they have ADHD. And that's, like Dr. Warren is saying, that's their go-to. And our philosophy is a first start, fresh start. And one of the things about that is we have kids that are having great success at age 8 to 10 using a half dose of the ADHD and not having to take the other products that have all the side effects.
Wow.
So even kids younger, that depending upon the parent and the doctor and what's being done, as far as you already know, right, with the liquid as well. So you can put it into drink or whatever you may want, water, and they'll drink it. So it has great success and great help.
I just think that having that alternative, because I know what it's like to be a mom of young kids, and I know what it's like to be in that position of even teachers suggest, like they're not technically supposed to suggest, but suggesting like, this is what your child needs, or, it's a great time to have them evaluated at 5. And, there was a culmination of many things that we did with my son, but actually he was on the spectrum. We were able to heal him with a number of things, but we also homeschooled him because he isn't meant to sit in a desk. Like there's other things that he needs to do, but having something like this to augment the healing of the neuroplasticity of his brain, as we know, it takes a long time for brain health to turn and those cells to turn over, and to have something to continually support that process. My husband and I have seen major changes in my son. Having my son with some issues of spectrum disorder and being able to do detox things, use zeolites, use all these things until I found methylene blue. We had a beautiful success story. We made lifestyle changes that represent what he needs and had the courage to do that. And we've been on this incredible wellness journey. But having something like the methylene blue that he intuitively actually wants to take to continue to support those brain cells turning over as he has, I think, what is it? Neuroplasticity is probably like a 9-year full healing of those brain cells to turn over. It's so incredible for my husband and I to see the changes that have happened with him from just this simple.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also the reverse is true, which is very interesting. As we get older, we're also told, don't worry, you'll be forgetful.
But yeah, back to the kids, I think that when you're told as a parent that you have to put your child on some sort of pharmaceutical medication that we don't know the long-term lifetime ramifications of what that's going to do to a developing brain, that is a really tough pill to swallow, pun intended. And I think that having an option like this is going to be a game changer for the moms who can get this information and the parents who can get this information and make these decisions and advocate for their kids.
Yeah, because something either in their diet or something is in our environment, because we didn't have this years and years ago. And so it's got to be something that we've in our environment around us. And so if we get methylene blue to repair those mitochondria and health, I think we're going to see a lot of kids get benefits from it without having to be put on any of the stimulants that they have. Because again, they didn't have anything else to do. So, here's Vyvanse, here's Ritalin, here's Strattera. Oh, this is safe for Strattera or Concerta. And it's not focusing on the root cause, which is something in the brain. The mitochondria are not being healthy. And if we can make it healthy, we're going to see great benefits. And hopefully we can keep passing the word on like you are, so that parents will give it a try. And so simple. Kids love to take the liquid or the pills, and they're going to get the benefits with no side effects. Well, that's a game changer.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I love that it's very, very easily available and easy to take and very affordable, like we talked about. I know that you guys have a couple of products that you also have developed, the nasal spray, the throat spray. I don't have those in my clinic yet, but now after talking to who introduced all of us together, I feel like now I need to have those. Would you be able to just briefly touch on what those are and why they might be a good medicine cabinet item for either the cold and flu season, your college kid?
As you notice, and even during COVID time, people talked about some of the alternative docs about hydrogen peroxide. And before they started promoting that, we had our nasal spray is a 0.5% hydrogen peroxide. Our throat spray is an colloidal
mineral oxide.
And we were having the great benefit with mineral oxide, and we're getting these great benefits during that viral time. But if you really look at it, I call it the travel pack that everybody should have, especially going on airplanes, going to malls, 2 sprays each side of your nariz to kill the virus. Everything in our body goes through our nose. Yeah. And if we can kill it and stop it then with a 0.5% hydrogen peroxide in our spray that we have, and then the throat spray, we're going to prevent those infections. So I'm trying to encourage people to have it in their travel packs, because every time anybody goes on the airplane, they get sick. Yes. And if you get around a lot of people, you're going to get sick. So if you have your mommy pack and you have the sprays for their nose and their throats, it's going to prevent them from getting all those illnesses. And it was shocking. It was the first products we made. And during COVID time, it was amazing how many people use those religiously and never got sick. Yep. And so that's why we're now promoting as it's not necessarily just for COVID, it's for any virus, because hydrogen peroxide kills everything. And so if we could do that and the colloidal silver and the throat spray, that's what we think is a winner package for everybody.
You guys are going to spend so much time. I was like making my own normal saline, putting the food grade hydrogen peroxide, the Lugol's, like all the things, nebulizing. This is so much easier.
So one of the things about it being a hydrogen peroxide, it's the byproduct, right? It's a mineral oxide. So it's much more than that. It's a stabilized oxygen. It fights the virus. It's not just that like grabbing hydrogen peroxide off the shelf and putting it in.
Yes.
But we have to label it that, because when we say mineral oxide, people have no idea what it is.
Yes.
But part of that percentage is actually in that hydrogen peroxide arena. Interestingly enough, for those that are aware, that mineral oxide kills more than ozone. If it's put into water, it has a long-term kill, even better than fluorine. The only thing higher is fluorine, but it's better than anything as far as chlorine, I should say. So when we put it in water, it actually purifies water, and it can be called a NSF 60 water. So it is incredible. It mimics our body's interstitial fluid. It's a redox agent. So there's so many more things that it's doing. So it's cleaning the nasal passages, right? At the same time, freeing up that airspace. So even people that have allergies, great for allergies, or just great to take to keep the nasal passage clean. But also in the spray, in the mouth spray, that's our mineral oxide with our silver, the nano silver. And so it's an AG404. It's been tested. It gets out of the body. It's not something that goes ahead and accumulates in the body. It eliminates within 24 hours. So people don't have to worry about those other things you hear about turning blue. You're not going to turn blue. But those are the things that are super important. But if you even start to get a little bit of a scratchy throat or sore throat, or the kids are around someone that has strep, guess what? We also tested it on strep, knocks out strep. We also tested on the SARS-CoV-2 virus on surface. Knocks that out within under a minute.
Man,
so very effective.
Of this, I will be placing an order for all of these. And
they're great.
I think talking about the immune system, and if you guys can enlighten me on how you described this, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we do get exposure to these viruses, which happen all the time, it's really stopping the replication of them in their tracks.
As Dan and I are talking, hopefully it keeps going on. It just talks about how the immune system, again, it has to have a good mitochondrial basis to it, and that's what we're doing.
But I really... is there any other things that come up for you guys where people are hesitant to use this? I mean, it's almost so simple that it's like sounds too good to be true.
It does sound too good to be true. But when you take it and experience it and feel it, especially those that know their body, a lot of times people go, man, if I don't feel it within, if you want to change your skincare, how many days do you do it before you really know it works?
Long time.
You do. You have to keep with that, right? Mm-hmm. So your turnover, things of that nature. But when you look at this with the Methylene Blue products, you will start to feel a difference, and you'll feel it fairly quickly. Yes. ADHD, you're going to feel it right away. You're going to know it within the hour. You're going to start feeling that.
Yes.
The NeuroPro Plus.
those messages that you get, like those are your testimonials on how things are working. I can't believe the women that have reached out to me and said this is a miracle product for them.
Incredible. When you talk about hormones and things of that nature and balancing out and weight loss and things of that nature, I like to take the NeuroPro Plus at night. Why? It's when our brain does its data dump, neurotransmission. It's taking long-term, short-term memory, getting better sleep, oxygenation as we sleep. And guess what? It helps with weight loss as well, because guess what? We finally get our cortisol levels back in where they should be, right? Back in balance with good sleep and get better REM sleep. And we just feel better.
Now, I do have people ask me, and I'll wrap it up after this, but I do have people ask me, okay, do I need all three of them? And so to your point, like, do you take maybe NeuroPro Plus at night sometimes? Can you take the ADHD one for when you need that extra concentration? Can you take too much of this stuff? What would you guys say in terms of that?
Yeah, I think everybody just has to base it on themselves. I mean, even if you took a lot of these, there's small enough doses we don't get to the area of causing problems with the methylene blue. And so I use, like I say, the NeuroPlus at night, because that's when our body's regenerating, and the days they need more focus. Everybody has their own focus on what they like. A lot of people don't like the idea of the caffeine, but the L-theanine takes care of it. So they go more to the vitamin C and the methylene blue. So we just try everybody, at least my experience, people get the favorite ones. They try a few of them, and then they get their own pattern of what they're doing for their own selves, because every one of us is individual. And we just tell people, individualize it to yourself. Some get by with just one product, some need two. And I don't have very many people that do all three, but if that's works for them, that's what we need to do, is everybody experiments on themselves and do that study of one, and that's what they use.
Yes.
But you can't get enough of them. Even if you took them all of them, it'd be hard to get enough level.
I'll give you my regimen just so you know, because I want to know, right?
He's boss.
But one of the things that I love is the mineral oxide and the methylene blue. And the only way to do that, because it is a liquid, the only way you can take that is actually in the tincture form. And so I'll take my methylene blue as far as the brain fog in the morning, along with one of my ADHDs or whatever I want to do with that for my brain and body energy. I'll take that, and that gets me through the day. It gives me endurance, focus. But then when it comes to it at night, I take my NeuroPro Plus, and that's my regimen. I don't have to do it every day, 7 days a week, but it's definitely, 5 days a week I'm doing at least. So, if you miss a day, you're going to be okay. You don't have to take them all, but it just depends on what you want and what suits you. But one of the things is that we all feel fatigue, and you get fatigue in the afternoon, or if you're fatigued mentally, that's where the brain and body energy, the ADHD, really does help a tremendous amount. And you'll feel the difference, and you'll be able to focus on task and have the energy you need to go throughout the day. So it depends on what people are needing.
Awesome. Well, we carry this in our clinic. I think that it will continue to fly off of the shelves. You have my commitment that to my patients that we will keep a heavy stock of that and continue to talk about it. And if there's another medical practice that was looking to get in touch with you guys to be able to carry this on their shelves, where would they go to be able to establish an account with you all?
Yes, just on best365labs.com. If you look in there, there's a special area for practitioners and doctors for wholesale accounts. And that has more information as well, as far as studies and things of that nature, and some other chalk talks and things that Dr. Warren and some others have actually put into play as far as more in depth about methylene blue, about treatment protocols.
I love that. I am so incredibly grateful for you guys spending this time with me. I know we went over a little bit about even what we talked about.
Thank you so much.
It's exciting stuff. I look forward to getting to know you both more and partnering more, because we got to get the word out and let people know about these amazing products.
You're right.
We do.
Much. Thank you.
When you were off, we were talking a little bit more about urinary tract infection. We were talking a little bit more about cognitive function, mental health. There's so many little avenues.
Listen.
So we didn't go into a lot of that, but it would be fun for people to do, or another podcast later to kind of do a little bit further dive, because there's so much that it covers.
I agree, because there are some major untapped chronic illnesses like interstitial cystitis, some of those types of things, Lyme. Like, people are really sick, really struggling, and they're given, like you said, just another pharmaceutical. So I would love to hear even people reach out to me and let me know any of their own questions. It's amazing what people come up with and how we can help. And we learn every time. I always say, every time I teach, I learn. Every time I have conversations where even I show up as the one giving the talk, I learned so much. People are just incredible, and we got to keep their minds nice and sharp with this stuff.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
it. Thanks.
Wonderful day.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap on another enriching episode of the Curated Beauty Podcast. If today's conversations resonated with you, I urge you to share it with someone you believe could benefit from it. Let's spread the beauty, knowledge, and empowerment far and wide. For more in-depth resources, information about who we are, or if you're interested in becoming a patient or training directly with me or one of my team, visit our website at beautyculturespa.com. Don't forget to stay connected with us on Instagram for all the latest updates, behind the scenes, and beauty wisdom. Follow us at beautyculture.medspa and at B Cultured Wellness. That's the letter B, Cultured Wellness. Thank you for being with us today. Keep curating your beauty both inside and out. Until next time.